Suspects in a counterterrorism sweep that authorities said was connected to the Brussels and Paris attacks. Meanwhile, however, Europe continues to try to appease migrants. Germany's justice minister is using the migrant crisis as a pretext to ban the display of sexy images in hopes that it might stop migrant sexual attacks. Joining me now, Steve Rogers, Gillian Melcher, and Jillian Turner. I'll start with Turner out in D.C. This is just nuts. How far has the West fallen?
Well, look, on the story about the sort of limiting sexy ads here, I think there's this misconception that's as old as time. We hear it all the time, over and over again, that victims of sexual violence somehow are capable of inciting attacks because they're sexy or provocative. And the real problem here is that the minister proposed a ban on sexy ads in direct response to the Cologne attacks, which strengthens that inference, and that's where the real problem is. I don't think he had bad intentions. It's part of a larger story where Germany's trying to tamp down on what they're calling sexism in the media. So his intentions were good, but the execution here was very poor.
Yeah, listen, I wouldn't even give him that much of a pass, to be quite frank, Jillian, because Cologne, they tried to cover it up.
Yeah.
And these are women,
true.
New Year's, wearing sexy outfits, and these migrants thought, well, they deserve whatever they got. And, you know, I think it's the most deplorable action that you could see.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
It sends exactly the wrong message because, you know, I'm pretty pro-migrant, but on the condition that they come, they embrace our culture, they embrace Western civilization, and they become westernized.
You met a lot of them. You were out in Europe. You met a lot of these migrants in transit towards these, Western capitals. Did you sense any of this? Did you ever feel violated at any point?
No, I mean, you see both sides of it. The vast majority of men that I met there were very respectful.
But there were some aggressive people there, though.
Yeah, wanted to embrace Western culture. A lot of them were very concerned about their daughters' futures, and that was touching to hear. On the flip side, you do
the daughters
meet people,
they left behind.
No, well, some of them the daughters that they were bringing with them. But you did see people that wouldn't touch a woman's hand. I know that's cultural, but I think that's something that's got to change. This sends the message that you don't have to change if you come to the West.
Steve, from a law enforcement perspective, I think this makes the law enforcement job even harder because essentially you are given a de facto green light.
You're exactly right, but this is why we need term limits for politicians worldwide. Something happens up here, Charles. Their priorities should be on protecting the people from terrorism, not worrying about ads. It makes it very difficult for law enforcement because now their priorities have to change.
Jillian in D.C., I do want to ask real quick, the 5 arrests in Britain, we're starting to see arrests fan out all over. Any hopes that perhaps these European countries will learn how to work with each other, communicate with each other, and even America to sort of prevent this rather than working from behind?
Well, these recent arrests were done by a consortium of Belgian, French, and UK's MI5 intelligence and law enforcement officials, which is actually good news because it indicates they're coordinating with one another. There's been this very troubling pattern that's emerged lately where the Europeans come together, share information, share intelligence in the aftermath of terrorist attacks when they really need to be doing it 365 days a year round the clock. So maybe this will set a good precedent moving forward for how they should be operating.
I hope so. I hope so. Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate the comments.